This is J. Krishnamurti's 10th public talk in Saanen, 1964.
I believe this is the last talk in this tent. There'll be discussions afterwards. I would like this morning to talk over and not merely verbally explain, but also understand deeply the significance of religion. But before we go into that, we have to clear the field so that we can penetrate more deeply into this question of what is this religious mind and what is the state of a mind that inquires deeply into the question of what is religion. It seems to me that it is very important to understand the difference between isolation and aloneness. Most of our daily activity is centered around ourselves, our particular point of view, our particular experiences, our particular idiosyncrasies, family, job, what we hope, what we wish to fulfill, fears, agonies, despairs, all self-centered, and therefore all activity brings about an self-isolation. This we can see in our daily life, that we are never deeply related to anything, neither to our husbands, children, wives. We have our own secret, hidden pursuits. And our desires, our ambitions, our activity brings about this isolation. And this isolation is also the result of our escape from our daily boredom, daily frustrations, our despairs, and all the trivialities and the agonies of daily life. That again breeds this isolation. This isolation also comes about, or rather, it can be expressed when we are aware of this extraordinary sense of loneliness. When we are not related to anything. When everything is in the distant, there is no communion, there is no relationship, there is nothing. And one feels this very deeply, this loneliness. And again there is an escape from that loneliness, which again brings this process of isolation. I think this, most of us, we know, if we are at all conscious or aware of the whole process of our being, we are aware of this. From this loneliness, from this isolating process, we try to identify with something greater, something beyond the measure of the mind, either with the state or with an ideal or with a concept of what God is. This identification with something greater, immortal, outside the field of our own thought, is what is generally called religion, which demands belief, dogma, ritual, separative pursuits of each group believing in certain aspects, and therefore again bringing about isolation. Again one sees this as the earth is divided into various nationalities, various countries. And though we are human beings, we have built walls around ourselves through nationalism, sovereign governments, economic barriers, tariffs. And again that breeds this isolation, this loneliness. Such a mind that is caught in this loneliness and this isolation can never possibly understand what is religion. It can believe, it can try to identify, it can have certain concepts, formulas. But religion, it seems to me, has nothing whatsoever to do with belief. With any organized religion, with any priest, with any church, or with any book, that state of religious mind can only be fully understood when we begin to understand what is beauty. The understanding of what is beauty must be approached through the awareness of what is aloneness. What is totally, completely alone, that state alone can know what is beauty, and not another state. Aloneness is not obviously isolation. Aloneness is not uniqueness. Uniqueness is an exception. And to be completely alone demands extraordinary sensitivity, intelligence, and understanding. To be alone, as I said, is not to be unique. To be alone implies that the mind is free of every kind of influence, therefore uncontaminated. A mind that is completely alone, and it must be alone, to understand what is religion, to find out for itself if there is something immortal, beyond time. Mind must be completely free of all influence, and whether that is possible at all. Because mind, as it is constructed, through many thousand years, is the result of influence, both biological, sociological, environmental, climatic, food, every type of influence. Again, that's fairly obvious. which is time is influence. You're influenced by the food you eat, by the newspapers you read, by your wife, by your husband, by your neighbor, by the politician, by the radio, by the television, thousand things that you're constantly being influenced, poured into the conscious as well as into the unconscious. And is it at all possible to be aware as much as one can of these many influences and not be caught in them? To be aware of these influences and remain totally uncontaminated. Otherwise, the mind becomes merely an instrument of environment. Though it may believe in God and all the rest of that business, it is still a part of the environmental process and the pressures. And therefore it can, out of the environmental fear, demands, tensions, superstitions, pressures, it can create an image of what it thinks is God, is truth, is the eternal, and cling to that. And such belief, such adoration of a belief is not the state of a religious mind at all. So one sees that. How you are Christians, brought up 2,000 years by a church built by man, by priests, by dogma, by rituals, by pressures. From childhood, you're told to believe, you're baptized. You go through all that process of conditioning, brainwashing, or brain being reformed. And the pressure of this propagandist religion is very strong, well organized, psychological, through education, through images, through fear, through losing pressure of jobs, 1,000 ways. Religion takes this form of conditioning. And there is this whole East, which is also conditioned heavily for 10,000 years and more. With their beliefs, with their dogmas, with their superstitions and so on. So is it possible for the mind, which must be free, otherwise you can't find out what is true. And freedom is to be free from influence, from your nationality, from your church, from your belief, from your dogma, from greed, envy, fear, sorrow, ambition, competition, anxiety. Otherwise, if it is not free, one of the pressures will create a contradictory, neurotic state of mind. And such a mind cannot possibly discover what is true. If there is something beyond time, so one sees logically the necessity of a mind that must be free from all influence. And is it possible? If it is not possible, then there is no discovery of what is the eternal, the unnameable, the supreme. So, one has to find out for oneself not only while you are here in this tent, but in your daily life, in every moment of the day, to find out, to be aware of these influences, how they are contaminating, how they are reforming thought, how they are conditioning the mind. One cannot obviously be aware of these influences all the time. You cannot. Consciously, you cannot possibly be aware of the many influences that are pouring in onto you. That's an impossibility. But one can see the importance, and I think this is where the crux of the matter of this point is, that though one cannot be consciously aware, cognizant of all the influences, but if you understand the necessity of a mind that must be free of all influence, then the unconscious is aware, though conscious may not be. Am I making my point clear? What we are trying to point out is that there are influences extraordinarily subtle that are shaping your mind. And a mind that is shaped by circumstances, and circumstances are always within the field of time, such a mind cannot possibly, under any circumstances, discover what is the eternal, if there is such thing as eternal. So, the question then is it possible for the conscious mind, which cannot possibly be aware of all the influences, then what is it to do? Then one finds, if that question is very serious and earnest and essential, demanding your complete attention, if that question, then you will see the unconscious, the part of you which is not totally functioning at the upper layers, takes charge of all the influences that are coming in and watching. And I think this is very important to understand. Because if you merely resist an influence, defend yourself against that influence, again that defense, that resistance becomes a barrier, which is a reaction and therefore creates a conditioning in the mind. So the understanding of this total process of influence must be effortless, must have a quality of immediate perception. And it's like this. If you see something is very important, there is a certain part of your mind, your brain takes charge. Though you may be occupied with other things, that part of the mind is very active, watching. But what is important is to see immediately the importance of not being influenced. That is the real point, not how not to be influenced. What to do if you are influenced, but to see the importance under no circumstances whatsoever, by whomsoever, not to be influenced. Then once you've grasped that tremendous significance, then you will see that there is a part of the mind that is always alert and watching. Always ready to push off, cleanse itself of every influence, however subtle. And out of this freedom from all influence comes aloneness, which is entirely different from isolation. The two are totally different. And there must be aloneness, because beauty is not in the field of time. It's outside the field of time, beauty. For us, beauty is proportion. The shapes, the size, the face, the contours, the color, the face of a building, the tree, the mountain. But the observer who looks at these things, whether it is a painting, listens to music, or sees the beauty of a mountain or the flowing of a river, the observer is still the experiencer, the outsider who is looking. Therefore, is still within the field of time. And therefore, I feel, as beauty is beyond time, there must be the ending of the observer. You know, for most of us, experience is merely a state of accumulation from which to judge, to evaluate, to think. And a mind that looks at a picture, listens to music, or sees the swift flow of a river or a tree, it is looking from the accumulated, from the past, from time. And to me that's not beauty at all. Beauty is only possible when there is this state of mind which is completely alone. Because we are trying to find out what is the eternal. Not what religions say, not what the priests say, not what the organized belief says. That is nothing whatsoever to do with that understanding and the state of mind that it comprehends, is aware, that which is eternal. So, to understand that, as we pointed out earlier, the mind must be totally uninfluenced, therefore uncontaminated by society. Society being the psychological structure of greed, envy, fear, anxiety, and a dozen things. It must be free of that. And out of that freedom comes aloneness. It is only that mind, that which is completely alone, can know what is beauty, which is outside the field of time. So, beauty and that which is eternal cannot be separated. If you paint, if you write, if you observe, if there is any form of the activity of the self-centered movement of thought, then it ceases to be beauty, because it's still within the field of time. And if you don't understand beauty, you cannot possibly understand what is the eternal. The two go together. So, a mind which is the result of time, time being the past, the tradition, the accumulation of knowledge, that mind is now trying to find out what is the eternal, what is the immortal. It's not a question of what you believe or disbelieve. That has absolutely nothing, that's too immature, too juvenile. But if the mind is earnest to find out, then you must relinquish totally this activity of isolation. And come upon that state of mind which is alone. And therefore, it's only the mind that is completely alone can comprehend that which is beautiful. And we have also to find out what is the eternal. You know, words are most dangerous things. Because they are symbols. And all words and all symbols are not the real. They give you a significance, a meaning, a concept, but the word is not the thing. So when we are talking about the eternal, and we say if there is such thing, and you have to find it out, not believing it, because belief is too infantile. To find that out, you must understand what is time, obviously. Time is a most extraordinary thing. I'm not talking of the time chronological by the watch, by the hour. That's obvious, that's necessary, and all the rest of it. But time, is there such thing as time, apart from the time by the watch? And is it possible to live without continuity? What gives continuity is thought. If I think about something constantly, it has continuity. If I look at a picture of my wife every day, I give it a continuity. So, is it possible to live in this world without giving continuity to every action I do? And so come upon every action I do afresh. That is, die to each action every day. So that the mind is never contaminated, has never accumulated. And therefore is free every day anew, fresh, innocent. We say that it is possible. It doesn't mean that it is real for you. We say it is possible, that one can live that way. But you have to find that out. So, one begins to see what is utterly, completely important is the state of a mind, the state of the mind, which is that it must be completely be alone, not isolated. And out of this complete aloneness there comes this sense of extraordinary beauty. Not created by the mind, by a picture, by putting paint together or putting few notes together, but the state of the mind that is in beauty, which means an astonishing sensitivity. And therefore, being so completely sensitive, being intelligent. Not the intelligence of cunningness, of knowledge, of trying to do something. The mind that is intelligent demands that it is not being dominated, influenced, unafraid. Then one also mind must be in that state of renewing itself every day, to dying every day to everything that it has known, the past. So these are absolutely necessary for a mind that would discover that which is the eternal, which is the supreme. Now, as I said, the word, the symbol is not the real. The word tree is not the tree. And so one has to be very alert not to be caught in words. You see, you understand what we are trying to explain? The moment the mind is not caught in the word, in the symbol, and therefore is free of the word and the symbol, then it becomes astonishingly sensitive. Then it can, that it is in a state to find out. Because after all, man has lived for so long seeking this thing. And from the ancient of days to now, they want to find something which is not man-made. Which all the religions say exists. Though organized religions have no meaning to an intelligent man, they have always said there is something beyond, and man has always sought that. Because man is always in despair, in agony, in sorrow, in misery, in confusion. He's always in a state of transiency. And he wants to find something which is permanent, lasting, enduring. But he has always said it must last, it must endure. That is, it must have a continuity. And therefore always sought within the field of time. But as one observes, there is nothing permanent. Nothing. Neither your relationship with your wife and husband, your job, nothing is permanent. And because of this tremendous fear of impermanency, we want something permanent, which is that which we call immortal, eternal, and so on. The search for the immortal, the permanent, the eternal is merely a reaction, and therefore is not valid. So a mind must be free of this desire to be certain. Then we can begin to find out if there is such thing as the eternal, which is beyond time, beyond space, beyond the distance between the thinker and the thing which he is thinking about or seeking. So, when one observes all this, one has to have tremendous attention and an extraordinary quality of discipline which comes out of this attention. Because such attention has no distraction. There is no tension. There is no direction. Because every direction, every motive is the result of an influence, either the past or the present. So out of this comes an extraordinary sense of freedom. And only then is the mind capable of discovering, or is the mind itself being totally empty, quiet, still. Only then it is possible for it to feel that which is and that which is not. And such a mind is the religious mind. Such a mind only can find out or be in that state of eternality. Perhaps we can ask questions about what has been said this morning. How to be free from the desire to be certain. Is that right, madam? How to be free from the desire to be certain. Now, look at those three words. How, desire, and certainty. Now, the word how implies a method, doesn't it? If you ask me, how am I to build a house, you will tell me what to do. It means a method, a system. The following of that system, a method, already conditions the mind. So see the use and the difficulty of that word, the how. Then also we have to understand what is desire. What is desire? We said the other day, if you are here that day, and I hope those of you have heard it and have really caught the significance of it, will not be bored by what is being said again. Really, you can listen to all this talk 1,000 times. And each time if you will see something new, therefore you'll never be bored by it. What is desire? Surely, desire arises when there is seeing, perception, contact, which is touching, sensation, and then the thing called desire. I see a beautiful house. The reaction of that seeing and the wanting that house or that car, that woman, that man. Through contact, sensation. Now, what takes place? There is the perception of a beautiful car. Please follow this closely. There is the seeing of a beautiful car. And from that very act of seeing, there is a sensation, neurologically, which creates the desire to drive it, to own it. We are not talking of the state of non-desire, how to resist desire, or how to be free of desire. A man who is free of desire is paralyzed, is dead. But the man who understands this whole process of desire knows its importance and its total unimportance. So there is the seeing of a car, the sensation, and from that sensation, the desire. Now, what is important is to find out what gives continuity to desire, not how to end desire. What gives continuity to desire? Thought. If seeing of the car, the sensation, and the desire. And if the thought didn't interfere and say, I must have, how shall I get it, give it a continuity by thinking about this desire, then it ends. You are following what I'm talking about? We are not talking or demanding or insisting that there should be freedom from desire. On the contrary, you must understand the whole structure of desire. And then you will know how what are important, or be free of all. You will do something else. So, what is important is not desire, but giving it continuity. Say, for instance, giving sexuality a continuity through thought, through images, through pictures, through sensations, through remembrance, keeping that going. Thought, thinking about it. That gives continuity to sexuality, to the importance of the senses. Not that they're important, but giving them a continuity which becomes important in one's life. So, what is important is not the ending or the freedom from desire, but to understand the structure of desire and to find out how thought gives it continuity. And that's all. Then the mind is free. You don't have to seek freedom from desire. If you sought freedom from desire, then you are in conflict. Then it becomes a problem, an endless business. But each time you see a car, a woman, a house, a child, whatever it be, and thought steps in and gives a continuity, then that becomes a problem. You say, what is important is to live a life without effort, without a single problem. And if you understand the nature of effort and problem and see the whole structure of desire, you can live without a problem. We all have 1,000 problems, but to end it immediately as it arises. And we've discussed that enough. I won't go into it now. But what is important, what is absolutely necessary, is for a mind to have no problems at all, and so live a life without effort. Surely, such a mind is the only religious mind, because such a mind is clear, has understood sorrow and the ending of sorrow. So such a mind there is no fear. And therefore, to such a mind there is clarity. To such a mind, to itself it's a light. Such a mind is the religious mind. Thank you very much for coming and listening. And I hope we shall meet again next year.